Hello and welcome to the Wealth Mind podcast, the show that talks about all things wealth and aims to give insights and perspectives to support us all on our wealth creation journey. I am your host, Katie Robertson, and today I'm joined by Andrew Rocco from Envoy Mortgage. In today's episode, we'll be talking about wealth creation and home ownership. Andrew shares thoughtful perspectives from his experience in supporting clients through the mortgage process and home ownership. Thanks for listening, and thank you for joining us, Andrew.
Thank you so much.
We always start with asking people a little bit about the background and the journey into the role they have today. So if you could share that with us, that would be great.
So I have been doing this for 22 years. The role to get me to where I am today started a while ago. And this industry has always been one helping people obtain home ownership has been something I've always enjoyed. And while the role has shifted as I've gone through the years and going through the crash of 2008 through 2012, it looks a lot different than it did when we started. The complexity of files, the challenges we face today look nothing like the challenges that and the type of files that we looked at previously. And so while a lot of that's been good, it's added a lot of components that now is just a part of our daily life. It's much more expensive to get a loan closed. But at the end of the day, it's just part of how it works. My role in and of itself of helping people obtain financing, whether it be purchasing a new home or refinancing something that they've got existing, really hasn't changed. That part of it hasn't changed. The back end, how we disclose, how we show the customer what they're getting has changed drastically. But the sales part of it is still the same. I am helping people obtain home ownership and been doing that for the entire time.
I still look into the customer feedback. There's a lot of very, very complimentary reviews, noting the sort of transparency of how the information, how you engage in them and support you get people. Any lessons, insights you can share with how you maintain such a high customer satisfaction?
Communication, bad news or good news fast, bad news faster. Having being able to communicate what's going on, regardless of whether it's a positive or a negative piece. And I feel like at the end of the day, technology has made our jobs so much easier with regards to how we get, when I started, we had to sit across face to face and someone manually signed documents. Those days are long gone, except for when you close on the property. You still have to go to an attorney or a title office in most states. But, that has made the job a lot easier. And it allows us to be a lot more transparent, and people can have access to the information immediately when the question arises. But at the end of the day, right, you still have to be able to communicate that information to them. And then obviously having the years of experience allows me to use that because I've seen a lot of stuff happen.
Yeah, I think I've purchased property in sort of 2 different countries, and it's very different processes everywhere you go. And it's great to have a partner who can take you through that, has been through all the different scenarios that you might, and there's always something pops up. Like you can think it's going smoothly and then something, and you're kind of like, what is this? And, but having someone that can just keep you calm and say, it's okay, I've seen it all before, I think makes all the difference. You mentioned there around the process has changed. I've seen in the UK and in Australia just the risk aspect, and there's a lot more information required around credit verification. And I suppose from the banking point of view, looking through to the client, even if it's coming through a broker, to that duty of care to make sure everything is there. Is that when you say it's changed, is that what you're referring to? Or are there other things that you've seen in terms of additional information or the process generally?
So with technology, right, we now can do things a lot faster We can access databases of information. So like we verify income through ADP, we verify income through Workday. Those type of things have changed. So where somebody doesn't need to necessarily provide their pay stubs and their W-2s like they used to, it makes things a lot easier because it helps eliminate some of the fraud, right? Rather than somebody uploading bank statements, they can just log in through their bank account information, and we can get all of that just automatically uploaded. So the parts of the process has changed drastically, right? When I started, we were faxing over a package of information to our lenders, and then they were, responding with a fax back with an approval, right? Those days are definitely gone. And that part of the process, people don't have to bring in a physical stack of paper anymore. So that part of it has changed drastically. And then the government is always imposing on how we disclose information to the clients. And that process has changed over the years. And the amount of time that we have from the time we take an application to when we can, the customer has to be disclosed certain things multiple days ahead of closing once they make application. And so that part has changed, but in the end, it's made it better. I don't think the government forms have made it clearer, but it has made the process easier for disclosure and such.
Is how long sort of on average, if you have all your paperwork organized and ready to go from your sort of application to approval, how long on average do things normally take?
I have one closing tomorrow that we did the application last Monday. So that's less than 2 weeks. We were ready to close on Monday of this week, and we're just waiting for the closing date to happen. So it can be done very quickly. That's for a client that has everything, again, because we can verify their income electronically. We don't need them to provide that information. We can have them log into their bank accounts and all of that stuff. We just have to get an appraisal. So it can be done very quickly. I would say on average, about 3 weeks is probably our average.
And I noticed that, you work across several different states. Is the process similar in these states, or?
Exactly the same. Yes.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, they've made it to where everything is, our licensing, right, is across all the states, but really it's a nationwide process.
Okay.
1 or 2 additional forms vary from state to state. Some states will allow closings to be all virtual. Some states require a physical signature, but that's more the counties and the states and how they want recording of documents.
Yeah, okay. Solves nuances. So changing direction a little bit. So looking across the industry and how things are changing. I've seen the 50-year mortgage price coverage. Interest rates are coming down. We'll see how low they get. Sort of how are you? What's your sort of take on the industry, where things are going, and what sort of questions are clients asking you more broadly?
One of the biggest challenges is affordability. When you look at what we face as an industry, people want the lowest possible house payment, but with the prices the way they are, they're forced to, have a higher payment, possibly where they like it. And when it comes to affordability, right, there's a lot of factors that come into play. Obviously, the price of the house, the property taxes, the insurance, and then the cost of the mortgage, what the interest rate is. And so, we've seen recently conversation about mortgage portability. We've seen conversation about a 50-year mortgage, and those things they're not necessarily good long-term for the client. They can and cannot be good long-term for the client. But at the end of the day, sometimes it's about being able to get into something that is the opposite of renting, right, and paying somebody else's mortgage. So I'm very interested to see how we're going to address affordability. I think that there are some things that are being floated out there, but when you peel it back, is it really going to be something that's going to work? Every time, when they went from a 5-year mortgage to a 30-year mortgage back, in the 60s, right? That was a drastic change. And everybody said, "Oh, this won't work. It can't be done. The banking industry it won't happen." But it did happen, right? I know that, there was probably 20 years ago, you couldn't find a car note that was 5 years was a very long car note. Most car notes had to be 3 years or less. And then now you can get an eight-year car note, no problem. And that's frankly what most people do. Cost of cars have gone from 5,000, 10,000 to now we're at 100,000. And it's just impossible for someone driving a car, right, to have a $2,000 a month payment when their income doesn't match that. What we see and what I've seen over the years is income always catches up. And so somebody that steps into a 30-year mortgage today, they can afford to pay more 5 years from now. But oftentimes we don't. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes of this. At the end, I do believe home ownership is one of the best ways to build wealth, simply because you have appreciation on the value of the house. So if rent is going up every year and, you're paying $2,000 a month, you're going to pay $2,200 the next year and maybe $2,400 the following year. If rents are going up, right, you might as well have that appreciation coming back.
Oh,
but
absolutely. And I think it's the definite. I mean, everybody should have, it's a big personal, emotional investment, but big wealth creation asset for everyone to have. Yeah. The other thing I've been thinking about is technology. And I see that Envoy has invested a lot in the sort of the customer journey or the chain of the application process. One of the things I'm always curious is about sort of generational shifts and how, as you say, people used to fax things and different generations coming through and buying homes. I perhaps have a bias to the younger generation find it easier to adopt new technologies. But can you just share a bit more on Envoy's investment in the application process or the different workflows, and then how you're seeing the client adoption?
That's ever changing, and AI is definitely continues to make the process more streamlined. But it's more streamlined in the fact that you're providing more data, right? The more data that a person subscribes to, the more data that we can utilize as part of the process. I think that will be an ever-changing and ever-evolving part of the mortgage industry. Today, like I mentioned before, right, people had to bring in physical paperwork because they were getting mailed. Statements were being mailed to them, and now that doesn't exist. And everybody can do everything electronically. As far as the younger generation, right, they're very adept to the technology, right? I still have clients that, that everybody has an email address now. Like 10 years ago, you definitely had some people that they didn't even have an email address. And so, the younger ones definitely, they're quick, right? In that you say, hey, log in with your bank account information. And then somebody that isn't familiar with that, or that's a foreign process to them, they're like, oh, well, I don't know if I want you to do that. Right. So I think it's just as the younger generation goes to purchase, they expect it to be faster. They expect their data to already be there. And that's, information that is scary in a way, right? Envoy, so we are owned by a technology company, and we consider ourselves to be fintech, and we will always be financial technology. But you have to be, as we grow and as we grow, right, we have to learn to put more processes into, automation, right? When we can download bank statements and those can be, that data can be compiled, right? Before it had to be scanned by an individual, someone had to put eyes on it. Now it's all just data that can be compiled. So that takes out the question. There's no emotion in it. There's no nothing. It's just data. And then we have to analyze it. And a lot of that analyzation that can be done right off right through computer systems and programs. So, but really going to make things better and faster.
I think definitely. And hopefully we'll reduce the risk as well we'll see. How does that sort of engagement then with the sort of solicitors and valuations and sort of like the other side, if you like, on the property? How are you still getting that in digital engagement from the sort of solicitors that are valuing the properties, and how that all flows into the process?
Yeah, it's an imperfect system, but it is getting better. I would say about 30% of our transactions, we don't have to have an appraiser go visit the property. Maybe 30 to 50% of my transactions, we don't have to have the appraiser go visit the property to create a valuation. A lot of that can be compiled with information and with data. And if it meets a certain threshold of acceptability, then they'll pass it off as an accept, because that data is public information. And so there are there are where you have quick valuation increases, such as people, that are selling. Maybe they bought the property for $400,000, they put $100,000 into it. Now they're selling it for $575,000. So those deals always have to be validated. And then anything that's on the government side, where they're looking for safety related and some of those concerns, that's we definitely see valuations being done there. But as far as it's getting to a place where, and hopefully we get to a place where we're able to just compile it off of data. At the end of the day, these things, so if you have to have an appraiser drive out to the property and appraise the property, it's going to cost $600 for that report to come back. So if we can do it digitally, it saves the client money. And so that's when it comes to affordability, right? All of these things have to be taken into consideration. AI can analyze a lot of data that we don't need an underwriter to sit there and spend time doing. And so those things will allow us to be more, will make things more affordable for the clients than for the buyers in our space.
Yeah, that's great to get everybody on the same sort of chain of events. Just thinking about the next sort of 6-12 months, what are some of the focuses you have, whether it's across the industry or more digital investment? What are some of the things that you're focusing on?
There's a couple components. I think we have to adapt to what the real estate world is doing, and the real estate world, the clientele is different than it's the same clientele. They're still buying and selling a property, but how they're figuring out how they're going to do what they're going to do. Maybe it's the agents that they work with. We're seeing that a major shift in that space, right? And so we've taken an approach where our partners, our real estate partners, become our partners. And that's been the major focus of what we've done. We want to help our agents actually understand and be in the mortgage space beyond just sending, business our way. We want them to understand. We want them to feel ownership in that part of the process. As far as technology goes, I think that there's a ton of stuff in the works as it pertains to, making the process easier. But at the end of the day, we still have to have that conversation and say, okay, how do we get somebody from point A to point B? And if it's the discussion on credit or discussion on income, there's still a certain level of expertise that has to happen. It doesn't have to happen for everybody, but for, there's a component of that. So I don't think AI will ever, take my job away, but it changes how we do our job, and it changes how we communicate with our clients and how we get the business in the door. People are going online before they ever do anything, right? And if they meet you at a they meet you in a public space, they're going to pull you up and look online. I was at an event last night, and had nothing to do with real estate or work, but the guy stood up, and, immediately someone that was sitting next to me said, "Do you know his last name?" Because he wanted to look him up on social media, right? It's just, we live in a world where people are doing things different than they ever have. You don't necessarily ask somebody for their name. You're trying to find them on social media so you can, look and see who they are and what they do. And so I think that's the biggest change for me, is embracing that
and using it as using AI as sort of an enabler.
Absolutely.
To enhance the client delivery. Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. And again, like, you've got people that you see their face and you see them talking about stuff, and that's not them at all. It's completely generated by AI. And so then it's about the quantity of the data that you put out and the quality of the data and what you can provide as a service to the clientele, for them to think that you're an expert in what you do. So those are the things that I personally am investing in for myself, is to understand that process. And being a little bit older, it's a little, the young ones take to it like that. I tend to be more resistant.
Yeah, it just takes a few more steps to learn things. Just taking back to what you said there around bringing the realtors closer to the process. What's the thinking around that? Is it sort of education and thinking about best matching clients with you, or how? Just can you explain a bit more on that?
Sure. So, yeah. So when it comes to the process, right? Our realtor partners, they're investing heavily in gaining clients, whether it's their engagement with AI, or whether it's their photography or their video sessions, or all of the different things that they do. And they're working hard to court a client that will eventually buy a property, right? And then they take and they hand that off to a mortgage person and a real estate person. And then they need us to do our job to be able to make the deal, the transaction close. And what we are doing is working where, instead of working with 100 agents, I want to go really deep with the agents that I'm working with. And I want to make sure that they understand, to make them an expert, right? Yes, they don't need to know how to underwrite a file, but they need to know what things they can sell to be an expert in their field. And then, and that partnership is extremely important. So really digging deep and investing time, and rather than just call up and say, "Hey, can I do your business?" It's like, I want to create value add for my realtor partners, my financial advisor partners, my attorney partners, that, so that they can have that I'm a resource for them, and really invest into their business.
Well, it's great as a client having working with people that have the ecosystem, because it's just far easier, and that trust along the chain just builds the more you deal with people around the ecosystem. So yeah,
I would say this is more important than ever. There's so much, there's so much online, right? And so Rocket Mortgage, or and I'm using competitors' names, probably not a good idea, but like, push button get mortgage.
I can edit that out. Yeah.
Well, push button get mortgage, like the system is set up to where there is no personal engagement, right? And that works for some people. They don't want to have personal engagement. But when you have a challenge, that really becomes a problem. And so for those that, I've got a realtor I was talking to yesterday. I've never seen, I've got a realtor agent that I work with that I've never seen anybody work as hard for her clients as she does. But there's so much trust that she has in her crew around her that allows her to fight in a way that I've never seen before. But she knows she works with us, and that ecosystem, as it spins, right? It creates immense value for the clients. The much easier process would be just to say, okay, well, that, you got your own thing, you got your own people, and I'll just be a part of it. But when there's a problem, it all falls apart, right? Whereas she's constantly pulling this stuff back together, and she's closing a lot of business in a time when there's not a lot of business closing. So clearly it is important. And the clients gain from it more than anybody else if it's executed properly.
Yeah. Oh, the ecosystem is hugely, hugely important. I can't imagine buying a home without having it there. And how many, like, you cover quite, was it 4 or 5 different states? How many realtors do you engage with? And that's quite a big ask to have that deep relationship with them all.
Yeah, it is.
So you're just a busy person.
I'm a busy person, a lot of hours. To be honest with you, when times were good, right, you had 5 realtors and you were able to do a lot of business, or 10 realtors and you were able to do a lot of business. The market has shifted drastically and there's a lot less business to be had today. And so you have to widen your net much wider. And that's just the reality of it. But the change in focus, right, of really going after people that are experts in their field, right, it makes it a bit easier because everybody has the same goal. And so while it's harder to build these relationships, when you do get them built, they're really rock solid. And then, the ultimate goal would be that as they grow, we grow with them and get continuing that. So it is difficult, right? But technology allows us to be, I'm on, every week I connect and engage with my teams, and there might be 10 people in the room and I'm engaging with them, but it's technology, right? We're not face to face. So it makes it easier, but then yes, you got to put in a lot of hours.
Yeah. Awesome. This has been fascinating. I love talking about mortgage process. If people want to get in contact with you, understand more, how would they best do that?
So, it's pretty easy to find me online, but andrewrocco.com, take you to my website. We've got, if you're interested in a mortgage, we've got a lot of calculators and a lot of information that can be that's out there. And then it's simply a phone call. My cell phone's right on my website. And, at the end of the day, my favorite part about my job is engaging with people and helping people. I know even you can't see it, but even on my Zoom name, right? I'm here to find solutions, right? And that's the beautiful thing about the experience that I've got and the time in the industry, right? I've seen a lot happen. I've seen a lot of different ways of doing things. And I promise you, this week I saw something happen I had never seen happen before. And I'm like, see, I'm still learning stuff, right? And that's exciting. That's fun. And I can take that and take it with me to the next transaction. But it's not very, very often that my head goes, that I'm just like, mind blown. This week I had one. This is stuff. So, but yes, it's reach out. You can apply online or give me a call and we'll talk through the process.
Is there anything else that you would like to talk about or mention that I haven't asked about?
No, you've kind of covered it all. I think that, or we as a country, right, we're going through a time where we're embracing AI, we're embracing, to try to bring costs down. And I think the biggest challenge we face is affordability when it comes to housing, hands down. And so, everything that's being done today is being done through that lens of how do we make things more affordable? How can we make it cost less to originate loans?
More efficient.
and be more efficient in that. So definitely that's where we're going. And I think it's important that, to see. And again, whether you like it or not, right? It's important to see leadership that's focused on that, and has a lens of affordability. And again, you may not agree with that, but for each client is a little bit different. And I think I'm excited about the future as it pertains to things being, us making sure that we're engaged in that affordability conversation.
Yeah, making it customized or personalized or specific to the individual. Because as we get more adept with AI and the access to data, you will be able to be more nuanced with each individual, I imagine. And I think that'll be really interesting as to see how that evolves.
Yeah, and it evolves drastically. Like I've got friends that are investors, and they're trying to tackle affordability as investors, right? And so there's it used to be you signed a 1-year lease, and then there was short-term rental, which cost more, but it was more flexible. Now you can rent a room in a property in like a pad split perspective, right, or a pad split setup, and they'll have an eight bedroom property, and they'll rent out room by room by room, and maybe for a month or 3 months or 6 months. But that for some people, that's the only way they can afford it, because they can't rent out a house and they don't want that short term. They need short term, but they can't do an Airbnb because that's more expensive. So, it's fascinating where we are going. And I think, we'll see a lot more where people are renting out half their house to a complete stranger to be able to afford to be able to afford things. People are going to become, and especially the younger generation, right? They feel more open to those kind of things. And so we'll have to adapt as an industry in that way. But at the end of the day, valuation of homes will continue to go up because they're not making more dirt, and things are only going to get more expensive. So as long as those two things are happening, right, valuations are going to go up. Yeah.
That's very true.
So buying a home is a good investment.
No, definitely. It's the best investment everyone should make. Well, okay. Thank you. It's been great discussion. Thank you very much for your time, Andrew. I really appreciate it. Well, lovely to meet you. Thank you very much.
Same to you. Have a great day and have a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for listening. I thoroughly enjoyed that conversation. If you enjoyed this episode of the Wealthmind podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, give us a review, or comment if you'd like to dig deeper into this topic. That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.